Hey guys, me Josh here, bringing you the next episode of Warship Weekly, the weekly podcast on World of Warships. I am me Josh.
I'm Nicodemus 81.
It's going to be a pretty short podcast this week. We kind of run into the same thing as we did last week. We actually got enough info, but nothing's changed in kind of the last couple weeks. We got one good topic though, and that's the Russian cruisers. Russian cruisers are out for people like myself who have press accounts, early access, that kind of stuff. So very few people got to test them. Super testers are testing them. Club Wargaming people are starting to test them, and it's pretty exciting, man. Soon TM is when they're going to come out. Apparently on the test server that's going to be out next week. They'll be out to play, so hopefully everyone will be able to test them then. But I got to play them. I played them 3 separate days, and I'm telling you, it's a pretty damn good line, man. Pretty unique line. Fun to play though. Some really good ships for their tiers. The line isn't finalized yet, so I'm interested to see if they do change anything and what it is they change. It's not the line that people wanted. People want the battleship line. People want the British, anything British, and it's the Russian cruiser line. You can say there's some Russian bias there, blah blah blah, whatever people want to say. But it's a good line. I'm excited for it, and I'm really looking to get it live and see how everyone deals with it.
I mean, just anything new at this point or anything different, exciting that can shake the game up a little bit is much desired. So I, like you, look forward to the test server coming out and diving in and seeing what they're all about. So after having played them for a few days, what would you say? Was there any specific niche style to them? And is there anything they're particularly good at versus their other cruiser counterparts?
Lower tiers, lots and lots and lots of guns. Their tier 2 is a complete seal clubber. The tier 3 is just like the St. Louis. The thing about the line though is they're not a master of each HE AP kind of thing. Germans are AP AP AP. The Japanese are HE HE HE. The USN line is we're weak, please help. I guess the USN kind of has like their anti-aircraft. The Russian line has as good, if not better, anti-aircraft for their tier. Maybe the Des Moines. I think the Cleveland has just a little bit higher. The New Orleans, but the Russian cruisers, the mid to high tier AA is insane. I was in the tier 8 and Essex was trying to attack me. I popped on my AA and I didn't even have the manual targeting. Demolished his planes. The AA on these lines are insane. The HE is pretty good at range. Decent fire chance, not as good as the Japanese. So decent fire change at range. I think the alpha damage is a little low in certain situations. And then when they get close, they are just AP monsters. In one game I played yesterday, I was in the tier 10, the Moskva, and a Iowa was broadside about 6 kilometers. I think I did 20 some K damage to him, finished him off, and then a Yamato was bearing in on me, and I shot. He was angled in towards me too, and I put a frontal salvo into him and did a citadel on a Yamato from about 7 kilometers away before he ended up taking me out as the guy from the stream anyway. HE from range and this AP, they are insanely accurate. The tier 5, the Karov, is a cruiser killer, a seal clubber. I'm excited for that. I wasn't quite on the Karov bandwagon. I played it again. I wanted to replay the whole line again. And it is a beast. It has the weird 180s. The calibers are all over the place on it, which makes it weird. But it's not like Japanese is like, oh, HE the hell out of everything, AP when they're close. HE does arguably more damage even than AP. The German line's like AP can wreck battleships. This line it's so situational where it's like, well, I can't pen them for that range because the caliber is low, but HE has a good fire chance, so you just and then it's like the tier 10 has 220 millimeter shots, so it's just like it's a unique line, interesting to play. I'm looking forward to it.
I did see some screenshots, and the tier 10 is almost as large as the Yamato is in terms of the size of ship in
I
the
believe
water.
it's like 10 meters shorter, and we got in one game, we put it right next to a Montana, and it was Montana Yamato. I think it was even longer than the Montana, but we put it right next to a Montana Yamato. It's a battle cruiser. It's basically the tier 10 was technically built in 1953, past World War II. It's basically they're basically a battleship. It has 65k life, which is almost as much as a Tirpitz, which makes the heals very good. Downsize about these, they're big ships. They're big ships, especially this tier 10. So not only are you a cruiser life, when battleships want to murder you, they can. You're a huge target, but it's very narrow. It's a cool ship. The tier 9 I love. I think it's the pinnacle of the line. So we're gonna kind of see how it kind of works out. There are some gems in that line. The tier 5 is very good. I think the tier 10 is a very fun ship to play. The tier 9 is awesome. I love the tier 9. Tier 8 has a really good AA, great support ship. Can be very offensive. Tier 7, tier 6. I mean, there's some really, really good cruisers. So I'm interested to see if they keep their power all the way through because they're not their final form. They could change, tweak some stuff if they're too strong. The tier 10 is it's crazy. It's huge. It's huge.
With that size, do they happen to be more easily detected then as the detectability increases as a result, or do they kind of fall in
Definitely,
line?
definitely the higher tiers. Um, it, the higher tiers run into some of that detectability problem. They're not sneaky by any means. They're big fucking ships, and so that's kind of the scary thing is you're going to be spotted a lot more than especially. I mean, you're at 14. I think you can get a tier 10 battleship lower detectability than with using a concealment expert. Lower detectability. I believe you can get like a Montana right to about a 12 kilometer, 12 and some change kilometer detectability. And I think the tier 10 Russian cruiser is like set stock at like 14.1. So it's a it's a battleship. It's a battleship with cruiser parts to it. So it's pretty interesting.
Hmm. Yeah. What's interesting to me even is even though those ships are so gigantic, their detectability is still not as bad as the Pensacola.
Yeah,
That
right.
poor thing at like 17 and a half kilometers. I still don't understand Wargaming's
It's
reasoning behind the
they
Pensacola
say it's
having the
because of the
detectability.
tower, and it's just like give it a break, man. I mean, a Yamato is like as sneaky as, or if even sneakier than a Pensacola. The poor little Pensacola. It needs help. It needs to be a little bit more of a ninja, where it's like this fat kid running down the hallway. You know, it's different. It's weird.
Oh, I just had to throw that in there because it's just too funny to me. But anyway,
That's the outlier in like every line basically. But
right.
again though, it's another week where you kind of haven't been playing that much, and I'm still playing a lot. Tested a lot of the Russian cruisers, but it's last week I was pretty harsh on the high tiers, saying like high tiers are going through some growing pains. And this past week, I've been playing the entire line, and I have kind of fallen in love with the game because I've been grinding the high tiers so much with all my tier nines that I started playing mid tiers again. A lot of sixes, a lot of fives, fours, messing around with some twos and threes a lot. And it's you get to these high tier games and you're just sitting there and you're like you need to be perfect. You need to do these plays or else it's just over. And then you get these mid tiers and it's I would quite use the seal clubbing, but it's just so much fun to get like two friends together, roll to your sixes, roll to your fives, roll to your fours even, and just kind of play around with all these ships you just rarely play. Rolling Umakazes, Tachibanas, St. Louis's, Phoenixes, all these fun ships that when you're grinding up lines, you don't really think about going back and playing. And I kind of have a lot of that fun right now playing on my European server or European account because the highest I have is a 7 anyway. So I get to play these mid tiers and it's such like a I don't know, it's just so much fun. I really do think that people are so when they start playing like, oh, I want the Yamato, I want this, I want the Shimakaze. Yes, they're fun ships, but really the high tier games aren't quite that fun. I know you're an advocate for 8 and under, and I think the most fun is that 4 to 8, and then you can even argue the 2, 3, 4 are really really fun too. The 2 to 8, I won't really include the one. The one's just weird. I mean, not often do you get all tier ones, but I really enjoy the 8 and under. I love those queues. If you never got a tier 9 and up, you're not really missing anything. You're missing some slow games, some stressful games, some really expensive games. So that kind of revitalized me and got a lot of the salt I think out of my system of using these ships at tier 9 and just getting whomped on and losing games. So I don't know. It was good to kind of just like get this stress out and get that salt out a little bit playing these lower tiers.
Oh, absolutely. I used to do that. Murmansk, excuse me, my go-to for that. Like my de-stressor. All right, stuff's getting a little too real. The salt levels are getting a little too high. It's time to go and enjoy some mid or lower tier matches. And it's like you said, it's more engaging. It seems like because ships are less passive. It's more forgiving in that the ships don't do as much damage, especially the battleships. I mean, don't get me wrong; they can still wreck you if you absolutely screw up. But it just seems like there's more room to maneuver, and the style of play just is different. Like you said, it's not as pensive, it's not as passive, and it's just in my mind more enjoyable. And I've always thought so too, and I've stated that a few times throughout the course of our podcast here. So I'm totally in agreement with you, and that the eight and below, excuse me, is where it's at. I mean, there's no comparison. Something changes at tier 9 and 10, and I haven't quite found a way to make it fun for me. Maybe it's just because I haven't found the right ship that I like to play at that tier, or haven't just quite figured out a strategy that works for me within the meta that kind of shifts around at those tiers. Yeah, definitely in agreement.
There you go. I'm Team Nika. One thing I want to backtrack to a little bit on the Russian cruisers, is I can't believe we forgot about this, is radar. It's in the game now. Well, technically it's in the game, not released fully. Radar is in the game, and it's a very cool tool for these Russian cruisers. It's going to also be on the USN cruisers. USN are going to be arguably stronger. From what I've heard, is the USN are going to have shorter range. The Russians were 11.7, tier 8 and up, and it lasted for 20 seconds for tier 8 and 9. Tier 10 was 25 seconds. Stock or non-premium consumable was a 6-minute cooldown, and the premium was a 4-minute cooldown. And so I think USN, they get a longer window, but it's shorter range. This, people are saying OP, OP, OP. They're yelling it from the top of the mountains. It's strong, but when you're playing, I mean, it assisted on me killing several destroyers when we were playing with the Russian cruisers. I can't lie, it helped me kill destroyers, but it's destroyers that were sitting there in one spot, not moving anyway, that probably would have ended up getting takeout anyway, but still, you see everything, and it's a really, really cool tool. It goes through mountains. I don't think there's any diminishing returns. So, I mean, but the thing that I don't think it's OP, it's strong. Definitely it's strong. But I wouldn't say it's OP because the duration is relatively short with a very long cooldown. You got to think, if you run 3 Russian cruisers in division tier 8 and higher, you could kind of chain it, but there's still that time where, you have a minimum of 4-minute cooldown. So it's like, is it OP? No, I haven't played a destroyer against it, so I don't have that, what the hell, why am I getting killed? But you need to keep your head on a swivel, really. Map awareness for Russian cruisers is going to be huge when playing a destroyer against them, or any ship in general, relatively stealthy, because you see everything. It's a great thing to assist a destroyer, like a gunboat destroyer, any kind of destroyer. If all of a sudden you're going to a cap and it starts getting capped out, there's a destroyer there, you pop the radar, you have this small window, and the thing why I don't think it's OP is because of the window, and at higher tiers, 20 seconds is enough to get 2-3 salvos out on a destroyer, maybe, and that's if you get you're aimed and you're ready for it. So it's strong. It'll be very interesting to see how it ends up working out live, and it'll be very interesting to see what kind of everybody says. Like I said, I haven't played against it, I've only played with it, and it definitely helped in a couple situations, not as many as people are going to be like yelling at super OP. It didn't help me every game get a win or something like that. It didn't break the game. I would say maybe 4 or 5 times in 60 games. It helped me spot a destroyer, maybe killed 3 out of all those while using the radar. But like I said, it didn't hurt, but I don't think it helps people as much as they're kind of worried about.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something that gives destroyer players something to think about, and it sounds highly situational.
Yep.
I haven't used it yet, but like you said, I mean, it sounds like it's used in a very specific circumstance to help support your team for a very short duration. So I would have to say that doesn't sound game breaking necessarily to me either. no more game breaking than say AA would be, which I'm assuming it's in the same slot as that, and you're having to trade off for that. Is that accurate?
No, they actually get it. They trade the plane, so they trade a fighter plane for it.
Okay, okay, but there is a trade though, nonetheless.
Yep.
So you're having to you don't just get it. It's not additional. It's not on top of additional functionality for cruisers. It's something where you're going to be specking into it to serve a specific purpose. And there's a trade-off to be had there too. So with those things in mind, I don't necessarily think I would see it as OP either. Though then again, I haven't played against it, and I also haven't played with it. So everything I can say about it right now is taken with a grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, definitely sounds like something akin to the um, AA skill, but for hunting destroyers, which is something that cruisers in game should be kind of doing anyway, as well as supporting their battleships if they're spec'd for that.
The main situation is spotting that destroyer that's on cap and maybe stopping them, or keeping sight on a destroyer as it's running away. Those are kind of the main things, that situations where it works out well. It also works out a couple times where I knew there was a battleship on the other side of an island, or knew there was something on the other side of an island that was out of line of sight. Popped it, we could spot them, we knew where that was at least. So it's pretty cool. I haven't played against it, so I'm interested on that. But it's a cool tool that I'm excited for. Remember that it's only tier 8 and up, and as of the Russian line, it was 20 seconds for 8 and 9, and 25 for 10. So pretty cool. I think it really punishes kind of torpedo spammers that destroyers are strong right now. There's no way to say they aren't because of the lack of carriers, which is maybe changing. We'll get on that probably next. But it's going to punish those guys that just kind of hang at 8 kilometers, nobody spots them, and they just spam torps and don't really play the class that well. They just are using these torpedoes that are very good right now. I think it's going to punish those, and you're definitely going to see there's going to be a learning curve. Definitely. So we'll wait. I'm excited. I mentioned carriers. I don't know if you've been watching the stream or anything like that. There are so many carriers in game, double carrier games. It is like a light switch has changed, and we basically talked about this last week. Is maybe the Saipan. Saipan is a confirmed tier 7 now, which I think is a weird tier. I thought it would be more of a tier 6. The Saipan's coming out soon. TM on that, but there are so many carriers. It's making life as a destroyer player relatively hard. Serves us right. We've been spoiled for a long time. But it brings into account the changes. One of the other changes I really want to talk about is the way they play it. Lots of strike for the USN side. Tons of strikes. I mean, a month ago it was all fighters you would see. Or 2 months ago it's all fighters. You'd see fighter, 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 both sides. Now it's a lot of aggressive, must kill carrier. You know, like I said last week, blood in the water, need to get them dead. Lots of strike going. But one thing it kind of brings up is, are dive bombers overpowered tier 8 and up? Tier 8 and up now get 1,000-pound bombs. They do a fuck ton of damage. Insane damage. I was playing with a, what was Schwinn in? Either with a Shokaku or a Taiho. And he said, there's literally nothing I can do when he was going against an Essex. Or whatever, USN on their side, Schwinn was Japanese on our side. He said, there's literally nothing I can do if you're not running a total fighter build. It's just too many planes, too much damage, too much fire. And if you're getting, if you, I mean, there is the counter, but it just seems like USN are so strong tier 8 and up. I don't know about tier 10. I think tier 10 kind of gets balanced out because the QU is very, very strong. But it seems like mainly the tier 8 too, is these guys are just striking them down and doing so much damage. It's I don't play them enough. I should start to get a good point of view, but it's kind of crazy right now.
And it definitely seems like carriers are back, and people are starting to figure out the strong points of the carrier line again after largely abandoning them for so long after they got a few nerfs and whatnot. And Wargaming had said that a lot of the changes that were hitting carriers were being brought into the game, and that there was going to be changes them better again coming down the line. And now you're starting to see some of that. So I think it might be a situation like you said, where maybe the dive bombers did get slightly overtuned, and they'll have to maybe cut it back just a smidge to kind of bring them back in line and give your IJN carriers a fair fight. So
And
fighting
we
chance.
talked about this kind of yesterday, that I think right now carriers are balanced as a class. I don't think they're too OP. I don't think they're, when a while ago, back before before the lull of carriers, I thought they were too OP, too many one-shotting of this, murdering that, nothing I can do. Then they went into the lull. We just didn't see carriers for a while. And now I think they're pretty balanced. I think the 1,000 pound bombs might need to be tuned back a little bit. I think right now there is balances of a class as they've been maybe since closed beta, but I don't think there's a balance between nations right now. I think some tiers it's very one-sided this way, one-sided that way. This is stronger, that's stronger. That's something I can't really. I just don't have the knowledge of carriers like I do other classes, so I can't really comment on too much of that. But as a whole, I like seeing carriers in the game. It makes it very interesting. It makes it very okay. I'm going to support my battleship. I'm playing lots of Baltimores or whatever classes, and I'm sitting next to my friendly battleships. I'm playing my role. I'm doing my job. I'm keeping my carrier alive so he can do his thing. You know, it gets that teamwork going again that I think a lot of people haven't had in a long time. So that's really really cool to see.
Yeah, it definitely requires some unselfish gameplay in terms of putting out damage, right? I mean, put yourself in a position where, or mindset where I'm not here to shell on battleships and start fires. I'm here to make sure this carrier and this battleship survive, and we're going to roll as a group and
Yep.
be a formidable force. Which is something that you're right has been lacking in the game. It's been very kind of a bunch of solo warriors all kind of doing their own thing, or maybe people split off into one or two ship groups and try and do something. But this kind of changes that dynamic a little bit because anybody and everybody is susceptible to those 1,000 pound bombs at any time. So definitely, definitely.
Definitely. And I just remember a couple of times I was testing uh on the test server when the dive bombs. This is just the thing that kind of brings it up. And it was after the 1,000 pound bombs were put into the game. And I was with a midway. I think I was running strike or whatever I was supposed to do. And I dropped 21 dive bombers. I was air superiority, so I had the extra dive bomber. Dropped it on the Yamato and did 30,000 damage and 4 fires. If that Yamato doesn't have a repair, he's dead.
That's
That
insane.
that gets to the point where this may be OP. You know,
Right.
if if
So,
if there's something that he has quote unquote no defense to, no cruiser, it gets back to the point where the loadouts on like a midway strike midway, where it was the 1-2-2 and two torp squads, it just deletes battleships. It gets to the point
yeah.
where it maybe is that too strong. That's the example I always use.
Right. So how do you propose they get adjusted? Like up the alpha damage, decrease fire chance,
No,
just
no, no.
decrease the damage in
I
general.
think
Like
the alpha damage probably got bumped up too much. The fire chance is the fire chance. That fucking happens. It was probably 1 in 100 shot or something like that for 4 fires. I think the alpha damage is alarmingly high. It didn't hit nearly that hard a while ago. Maybe tune down the alpha damage a little bit. It's a dive bomber. It's supposed to start fires. It's a big fucking ship. I dropped a bunch of them on top of his head. That happens. So I think it was like 9 hits out of 21, and so 9 hits to do like whatever 1,000 per hit. I think that damage is too high. The fire chance is the fire chance. It is what it is. I don't think they need to change that. I don't think they even changed anything about that. Maybe they did. I don't know. Leave in the comments if they did. I just think maybe the alpha damage is tuned down some, because that's a big fucking hit. That's a double citadel, just with dive bombers.
yeah, that's nuts. I'm surprised to see and hear that it's that high. I guess I hadn't seen anything quite on that scale, but I believe it though. I mean,
Yeah, but it's good. I think the game's getting well rounded again. Looking forward to the new tree and still having fun playing the game. But we'll welcome you back with open arms, Nika.
oh, for sure, yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a bit because obviously we did the survey last week regarding which line I should probably look into next. So the goal is to start playing the line that won won the drawing, which there was a tie between USN cruisers and German cruisers at 4 votes apiece. So
You're
tiebreaker
German.
goes to me. I
You're
get to
German.
choose. Yep, exactly. I'm gonna roll the German line just because I've already got the USN line up to tier 7 in the Pensacola,
Cool.
and so I'll be reporting on that in the weeks to come here as I make my way through the ranks. So that should be
Good.
fun.
Good. Well, another thing that's kind of coming up too that I just want to comment on is, have you ever been to a PAX?
No, I have not been to a gaming convention. It's one of those on my list of to dos. And I did see what you're alluding to, which is the announcement from Wargaming. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
Wargaming's going to PAX East. I sadly can't make it. I was hoping to go with Wargaming, but I can't. I can't. Brother's getting married. Kind of takes priority over that, so I gotta go be the best man. And but no, Wargaming is doing a pretty cool thing. So if anybody is going to PAX East, Wargaming is doing a meetup, so a Wargaming player gathering in Boston. So that's going to be on the Saturday, I believe, April 23rd from 5 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll leave the link down below for that, and be cool to see how many people kind of show up. I know Wargaming is going to have a nice booth. They did at TwitchCon last year. Sadly, they didn't go to PAX South, which is the one I went to, but they're going to have a big booth at PAX East. It should be really cool. Hopefully, you guys who are going have fun with that, and then get to go meet up and meet the guys. Probably Q's going to be there, Ribble, um, all the guys there. So that should be really fun. Bummed I can't make it. I'll have to wait to TwitchCon, where I am definitely going, and hopefully do another thing there. So that'll be cool. But if anybody is going, I'll leave that link below. Be sure to RSVP. Looks like they Wargaming throws pretty cool parties, so I hope it's a blast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it looks like Laugh Boston over at 425 Summer Street. So right across from the Boston Convention.
Should be cool.
So should be a good time. Yeah, for sure. I wish
Yeah,
I
man.
could make it as well.
A nice
So
short podcast this week, man.
yeah, like you said, man, not a whole lot to talk about, but we made something out of nothing, which I'm happy about.
There
And
we go. There you go. Hopefully next week we've got some more stuff with the test server coming out. Hopefully some good changes, and then we will have a bunch of content next week for you guys. But I have been me Josh, guys. You can hit me up at twitch.tv/mejosh, twitter.com, not TV, twitter.com/mejosh.tv, and hit me up on YouTube as well. Link will be down below. This will be up on the YouTube, so there you go. But that is it for me, guys. Nika, your turn now.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Nicodemus81. You can reach out to me at Warships Weekly at Gmail for comments and any kind of feedback regarding the podcast here, or I'm also available at Twitter at Nicodemus81. So.
Cool. All right, guys. Another good week of Warship Weekly. We'll catch you guys next week. Good luck out there. Take it easy, bros.